Our draft coverage is brought to you by McFarland Energy. Upgrade your air conditioning system before the summer rush. Visit McFarlandEnergy.com. By Northeast Men's Health, the leader in men's sexual health. Get your sex life back on track. NortheastMen'sHealth.com. By Lucky Energy, the #1 energy drink in Massachusetts amongst energy drinkers who like to get lucky. And by Chock Full of Nuts Coffee and McCormick Grill Mates Seasoning. So, you know, I feel like we've been talking about Will Campbell forever. And I feel like we have accepted it. I do want to let listeners know, about an hour from now, we are going to go through some mock scenarios. That
mock you out.
Yes, Ted Johnson, a big fan of mocks. It's interesting that he came up with this mock scenario segment.
I didn't call it a mock.
He's got moxie.
He does have a little moxie, and we're going to go through a variety of possibilities that could unfold for
Draft
the Patriots.
Scenarios for the Patriots.
Scenarios.
Most likely scenarios.
Tomorrow night, and what we think they would do, what we want them to do, how it'll play out.
Just get all of our stuff, everything we've been talking about on record for the record, right?
Yes.
We all got to pick it a player.
And I like the way you put that, because we're going to go to the phone lines now, 617-779-7937. And Mike in the car sounds like he would like to get Ted Johnson on the record about Will Campbell. So, Mike, what are your thoughts on Ted's thoughts on Will Campbell?
What's up, gentlemen? Did I just hear somebody in the background say Mama said mock you out? Because if I did, that's fantastic. Anyways, and also I hope you guys had a good, comfortable trip. I know that EEI doesn't always love to spend money, so I'm picturing Ted and Andy crammed into the front seat of a Prius driving from the airport to the hotel.
Hey, listen to odds and ends. You'll be surprised what we're driving.
Although
it's spacious.
Ted does take up a lot of room on a flight.
Yep. I traveled safe. Thank you, John.
Anyways, no, but Ted, all joking aside, and I don't know if I'm confused, misremembering, or what the case may be. I think it was pretty early on in your tenure in the show here. You were talking about Will Campbell, and you gave all his measurements and metrics. And if I recall correctly at that time, you basically were saying something along the lines of no tackle or lineman with these metrics has ever made the Pro Bowl or been All-Pro. And I might be a little off there, but okay.
In the last 25 years, yep.
Was I confused then in that you were saying that as a reason not to draft Campbell, or did I just completely miss your point?
No, definitely. You're on point. What I was saying is if you are forced into this pick, you have to go with him. But I would say he is not, to me, worthy of that pick based on his measurables. Does that sound fair? Like his measurables, in my opinion, don't grade out to be a 4th overall pick. Okay. But this is a unique draft. There's no other. What is their biggest need? It's left tackle. That's what he played in college. And can he play left tackle at a level of this serviceable for a time being until you maybe get another guy that you think he could be better at left tackle, and then you kick him down to a guard where I could see him dominating for his career. Then that's what I would want them to do. I'm just saying, he's not worthy of that 4th overall pick, but this is a unique draft where the need is so great and the rest of the talent is so down from previous drafts that they are basically forced into making this pick. Any other draft, I would say he's not worth it. But in this draft, I would say, you know what, if that's who you have a chance to pick at 4, then I would understand why they would pick him.
Thanks for the call, Mike.
Hopefully that explains it.
I think it did, but I appreciate that he was at least trying to catch you being inconsistent and flipping and flopping
never
in your
once.
opinion.
Never not once.
So we've spent a lot of time talking about Will Campbell's measurables, the very simple measurements of his arms, his wingspan, all of that.
Mm-hmm.
There's been a lot of reports, Fitzy, over the last 24 hours or so, whether they were independent reports or whether they're part of mock drafts. I want to read a couple of them to you guys and see if maybe this is what's swaying the value of Will Campbell. So Todd McShay has number 4, Patriots take Will Campbell. And in there it said, new coach Mike Vrabel fell in love with Campbell after meeting him multiple times during the draft process. Campbell's recall and football intelligence sold Vrabel on making him the leader of the Pats O-line room. Okay, so that's interesting.
Very interesting.
I like that. That's cool. That's very cool.
Jeremy Fowler says in his little blurb, several industry sources believe the Patriots have an affection for LSU left tackle Will Campbell. And he says Campbell would provide New England the chance to reestablish its identity across the offensive line
there you go.
for quarterback Drake May. Those two words, leadership and identity. And I'll throw in a word that they didn't use, but culture has been a big word this offseason. So we've beaten the dead horse that is his arm length, right? We've beaten that dead horse. But as we look at the total package of a player, if Vrabel goes, that's my O-line leader right there. Not sure which position maybe because of those arm length, but that's my leader. That's the guy that settled an identity. Because I would argue, Fitzy, you brought up Mike Onwenu.
Mm-hmm.
Is Mike Onwenu the leader of the offensive line?
No, the leader of the offensive line was cut by the New England Patriots, has lost 40 pounds, and is probably not playing football again.
Right.
There you go.
Is Mike Onwenu the identity of the Patriots offensive line?
Well, if you want to connect to last year's offensive line when he rode a bike through the locker room because Gerard Mayo lost control of the team in a silo-free capacity, sure. Right now, no.
So your $55 million best offensive lineman that you have isn't any of those things that we are potentially bestowing upon Will Campbell. Not necessarily the leader, not necessarily the identity. And I would say if we want to keep bringing up that name, certainly a guy like John Hanna set the identity of those offensive lines back then. But Logan Menkins was absolutely the guy setting the identity, punching guys in the nuts when they needed to in fights in Denver, things of that nature. So we've weighed the value of the arm length or lack of arm length. What is the value of Will Campbell's leadership, identity, setting a tone in front of Drake May, and what can that be moving forward?
Fitzy, I kind of compare it to what is the value of a third baseman that's you're paying $40 million when he's only worth $28 million maybe a year.
What's he worth to you? Correct, Ted.
Yeah,
boom.
Right. So
I am convincing Ted.
There's. Look, I'm okay with them picking Will Campbell. It's just I try to put in context where it's not the ideal selection at 4, but look, as far it's the most important unit on a football team. I will say this until I am 6 feet in the ground. Offensive line sets the tone, in my opinion, for the entire football team. You have a tough offensive line, you usually have a tough team. You have guys with grit and just have an a-hole attitude about them. It permeates usually throughout the entire team. And so of all position groups, Fitzy, it's the most who have if you want guys that just, have that grit, that attitude, that toughness, that we're going to come kick your ass kind of mentality that it sounds like Will Campbell has, it's got to be on the offensive line. And so there's huge value in that. And so I'm okay with them building, especially this team from the inside out, particularly the offensive line, because if you look at the team that just won the Super Bowl, that is the straw that stirs the drink for the Philadelphia Eagles is their offensive line.
Yep.
And I think that's the best way to build a team. And Will Campbell, my guess is Vrabel fell in love with him because of his attitude and his, you know what, I'll screw you guys. I'll prove all the doubters. That goes a long way with coaches in this league. Just having a player that they feel like they can coach that already inherently comes with that type of attitude, Fitzy.
Yeah, and your offensive line leader now, by default, is probably Morgan Moses, just because he seems like the kind of guy that is willing to lead, wants to lead, and will inspire people. And to everyone, again, I'll make this point again, to everyone who wants to say, well, worst run blocking line last year, worst pass blocking line last year. Of course, they need to make changes everywhere. So swing big, swing nasty. That seems to be Will Campbell. I agree, but you can't judge this year's iteration of the New England Patriots offensive line against last year's because 80% of it is going to be brand new, basically. They're revamping this line, Ted. So it's not fair to judge them against last year's inadequacies and failures. And look, if Will Campbell becomes a 12-year, long-established, much-beloved, jersey-selling, red jacket Patriots Hall of Fame type of guy, Andy, I'll retake this. I'll walk it back. I'll own what I said yesterday, and the days leading up to the draft. It's just, I guess when we're looking for splash and spark right now, there's not a lot of that, but also that's what wins football games. So here we go.
The minute that David Andrews was released by the Patriots, the value of Will Campbell to the Patriots went sky high.
Absolutely. And I'm going to say, this is going to sound like a backhanded compliment. The greatest thing you've said on this radio show since we've been together is comparing Will Campbell to St. Bregman, because I think it's an apt comparison. Bregman is not worth $40 million a year on paper. You go, wait, he bats 2 what? He gets off to slow starts?
It's 302 right now.
No, I know. But
Okay.
usually, looking at it in the past before he signed the deal, he's only going to hit maybe 25 home runs. Like, his best year came 7 years ago when
He's
he
only
was
a Gold
cheating.
Glove at third base.
Like, that's not $40 million. You got a Gold Glover in right field who's making $600K. So he's not worth it on paper, but he's worth it on the field to the Red Sox, to Alex Cora, to Craig Breslow. And you could argue, if just on paper, is Will Campbell worth the 4th pick in the draft or any draft? No. But to this team in this draft in the here and now, can Will Campbell be worth that? That was one of the greatest comments
Thanks, bud.
you've said. I appreciate
that.
it.
Thank you for the comment.
617-779-7937. We'll go back to the phone lines to hear from you about the 2025 NFL Draft.